Skateboard wheels have progressed a lot since skateboarding's inception decades ago. From metal to clay to polyurethane, skate wheel companies have always been trying to push the envelope and innovate the best performing wheels. The precedent for skateboard wheels has been hard wheels are for tricks and soft wheels are for cruising. The problem with this precedent is that most skate spots out in the streets where you would want to be doing tricks are crusty and awful. Anyone who's skated super rough street spots knows how frustrating it can be to fight through it with some 99 or 101A wheels. However, over the last few years, several brands have tried to tackle this problem and have come out with mid-soft wheels with new formulas that are able to handle rough pavement and also allow you to slide for tricks. I was a little skeptical, so out of curiosity, I decided to try out these new wheel formulas and see how they perform compared to traditional soft and hard wheels. To test them, we'll do a few experiments using science to measure the smoothness of the ride and their ability to slide. We're going to test the Spitfire Formula 4 93D, the Bones X Formula 97A, Powell Dragon Formula 93A, the OJ Nomads, which are 95A, and the OJ Double Duros. The Double Duros are unique because they have a soft core that's 95A and a harder outer shell that's 101A. For a fair assessment, we're going to use size 54mm for each set of wheels. For the first experiment, we're going to use the accelerometer on this phone and strap it to the board and use it to measure the intensity of the vibrations between the various wheels. We'll start with the control, a traditional hard wheel and a traditional soft wheel, then compare them to the new formulas and see how they line up. Alright, now the soft cruiser wheel, which is 78A.
Alright, this is the Spitfire Formula 4 93D. Here we go.
The mid-soft wheels should fall somewhere between the hard and soft wheel readings. I'm also doing the runs multiple times to be sure I get consistent readings and then averaging them out.
Sweet.
Here's the results from smoothest to roughest. The results are as we expected, falling in between the two extremes. If we put them on a bar graph, you can see that the wheels are closer in their smoothness to the cruiser wheel than the hard wheel. Okay, we've proven that the wheels can handle rougher pavement, but do they slide well like they claim? To test this, I'm going to skate each set of wheels for a while and give an assessment on their ability to slide. Since this is a bit more of a subjective test, I'm going to give the wheels a star rating between 1 and 5 for their slideability and briefly review the wheel's performance. I already know that my 101A wheels slide very well, so they get an automatic 5. And my cruiser wheels don't really slide at all, so they get a 1. So let's start with the Spitfire 93D. I was very surprised by how well these slid considering they're 93A. Not as well as a normal hard wheel, but still decent. I was able to do nose and tail slides and initiate power slides relatively easily. I struggled on a front blunt on this ledge for a bit and I had to put some extra wax down and squeaked away with a couple ugly ones. I'm going to give these wheels 4 stars. Next is the Bones X Formula 97A. These were a bit more grippy than the previous wheels. They were a little sticky for certain grinds like crooks and smiths on ledges, but with some extra wax I was able to get them to slide. They were very smooth and quiet, but could still break traction for flat ground tricks and power slides easily. Overall, I'm giving them a 3 out of 5 for slideability. I've heard a lot about the Dragon Formula wheels and I had high expectations. They did not slide as well as I was hoping. They are 93A, which is quite soft, and I had difficulties getting these wheels to slide like I wanted. I had to use extra wax and then I was able to get them to slide. They worked fine for flat ground and other pivot style tricks, and initiating power slides wasn't too difficult. I'm giving these 2 stars, but I would recommend these if your street spots are very crusty or if you normally skate extremely slippery skate parks and you need a little extra traction. The OJ Nomads were fairly grippy, but they were able to break traction relatively easily for power slides and pivot type tricks and didn't stick too badly on nose and tail slides. I did have to make sure the ledges had plenty of wax on them. I'm giving these 3 stars. Lastly, the OJ Double Duros. Even with the hard outer shell, they felt more grippy than a traditional hard wheel, but they still slid well for nose and tail slides and broke traction easily for flat ground flip tricks and power slides. They still had that kind of muffled sound like a cruiser wheel, but when you did a power slide, it screeched more like a hard wheel. I would say these are the closest to a hard street wheel of the wheels I tried in this video. I'm giving them 4 stars because they're still grippier than a normal hard wheel. Here's my assessment of the slidability of the wheels. Not surprisingly, if we compare the slidability to the smoothness of the ride, there's an opposite correlation. The smoother the ride, the less they slide, except for the Spitfire 93s. They seem to be able to slide slightly better than the smoothness of ride would suggest. The last test we're doing will also test how well they slide and test their durability. We'll start rolling down this hill on the first chalk line, and then start power sliding on the second chalk line and try to slide as far as possible. We'll measure how far the wheels slide and then check to see if they got any flat spots. My buddy Chris here is going to help me out with this one. First, we'll get the chalk line set up. We're measuring out 80 feet of downhill runway before the second chalk line. Okay, let's start with the Spitfires. Each wheel will get the same amount of downhill acceleration before the slide, so we can get a fair assessment. We're also going to do several slides with each wheel and average out the results. Now onto the Bones X formulas. Of course, the speed will vary just a tiny bit because of the differences in the smoothness of the wheels, but he should be going about the same speed for each slide. And he's not allowed to speed check himself during the acceleration. Now the OJ Nomads. Surprisingly, these were the hardest for Chris to slide on. And lastly, the OJ Double Duros. And these didn't slide as well as we predicted either. Here's the average results from the power slides. Interestingly enough, the performance of the wheels in the power slide test do not directly correlate with my observations while skating the wheels. Based on my assessments earlier, the harder wheels should have theoretically slid better than the soft wheels, but the Bones and Powell wheels power slid much better than the OJ wheels. It seems like the X and Dragon wheels are formulated more like longboard wheels that are designed to be grippy, but then slide buttery and smooth once the traction is broken. The Spitfire 93s performed just as well in the power slide test as it had in previous tests. Of course, there's going to be many factors that affected the outcome, such as the shape and contact patch of the wheels, as well as the temperature and the slight inconsistencies of the asphalt and so on. And that's why we put the science part in quotation marks. Now let's see if the wheels got any flat spots. Usually you can't feel tiny flat spots until you roll around on some really smooth pavement. So I'm going to roll around this skate park and assess the damage to the wheels. I'm going to give them star ratings again for the durability because I'm just going off how they feel. Riding the Spitfires, I don't actually feel any vibrations from flat spots, but there are a few visible small chunks missing from the lip of the wheels. The Bones X formulas had very minimal vibrations. I didn't see any actual flat spots, but there are visible gashes and a small chunk missing from one of the wheels. The Powell Dragon formulas had no chunks missing, but I did have a noticeable flat spot, but it was very subtle, not enough to be bothersome. The OJ Nomads felt the same as they did before and had no noticeable flat spots or chunks. The OJ Double Duros had the most flat spot vibrations. One of them is visible, but not enough to throw you off or even be noticeable if you're skating outside the skate park. Overall, I think all of the wheels held up super well. Here's the final results comparing all the wheels against each other. I think all of these wheels have their place. They each definitely made for a smoother ride over traditional hard wheels, and all of them were able to slide decent enough for technical skating. My recommendation would be that the Powell Dragon and Bones X formula wheels are great for transportation, and you'll still be able to do some technical skating for when you come across a spot. They would also be ideal for those super slippery indoor skate parks where you actually want a little more traction. The OJ Nomads and the Double Duros are more suited for regular skating rather than transportation, but they'll help you roll through crusty spots that would be difficult to skate with regular hard wheels. The Spitfire 93s were the best overall wheel that performed well in every category that really can cruise and slide well for tricks. Let us know what you think of the results in the comments. Do you agree, disagree? Are there some other wheels out there that thread that balance between cruiser and technical skate wheel? Until next time, peace.